Hello, and welcome to my presentation on the benefits of oceanic iron fertilization. This presentation is addressed to the incumbent head of the Environmental Protection Agency for the United States, Mr. Andrew Wheeler. I'm Ethan Walker. I'm an undergrad at George Mason University, and this is the 7th of December, 2020. So we're going on in. The current status of the Earth's climate. We're beginning to see the irreversible damage that climate change is putting on our world. Even if carbon emissions zero out currently, we will still begin to see a rise in global Earth temperatures. So simply put, reducing emissions, which has been the status quo of climate change, it's no longer enough. Time has run out. We're past the due date, and we need to take more direct action to reverse the damage we've done to our planet. Luckily, American innovation has led us to where we are today. We have a new understanding of Earth's natural systems and cycles, and we have new technology that is going to help us more directly combat climate change. New proposals in earth science. For the past 200 years or so, we've modified the Earth's atmosphere at an incredible rate, on an incredible scale. We are very, very good at changing the planet. We can do this again. We can certainly do this again, and this time for the better, and undo some of the damage most of the damage we've done. So the status quo is changing to a more direct approach, and that direct approach is carbon sequestration or carbon drawdown. And there have been many hypothesized mechanisms for doing this, but the most prominent, and the one that I'm sharing today, is the mechanism of carbon sequestration via oceanic iron fertilization. So this harnesses a natural cycle that has taken place in the past that is actually so effective that it's plunged the Earth into global ice ages. The atmospheric-oceanic interaction is perhaps the most dominating in determining what the planet's current climate is. All climate changes in the past have been attributed to a modification of the atmospheric-oceanic interaction. So with today's technology, we can modify this interaction and harness these natural cycles to work in our favor to sequester carbon and cool the planet. So moving on. So the overall term that we're looking for here is called geoengineering. It's kind of a buzzword in climate science these days, and it's a more direct action against climate change versus the status quo of passive action, which would be implementing policies, implementing carbon taxes. And that's all wonderful. It's effective, but it's hard to coordinate and it's hard to transition because we live in such a fossil fuel dependent society. It's completely infeasible for us to just turn off the power plants and all switch over to electric cars and reduce our carbon footprint. There's a transition there, and that transition is past due. So we're taking a more direct action, utilizing this proven model. This has been done on smaller scales using research vessels, where iron, a natural micronutrient, is dispersed into specific regions, particularly the polar regions of the oceans, where it is then eaten up by tiny microorganisms called phytoplankton, and that causes them to bloom and grow like crazy. And in their growing, they breathe in carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and store it in their biomass. And then when they die, they sink to the bottom of the ocean where decomposers cannot reach them in these cold regions, and they build up in large banks and stay there for however long. This exact mechanism is how a lot of the fossil fuels were created, where tiny organisms gobble up a bunch of nutrients, die, don't decompose, lay down at the bottom of the ocean and become sedimentated and buried, and the carbon stays down there indefinitely. So Unfortunately, currently, iron is not in abundant amounts in the world's oceans for phytoplankton to bloom. So the proposed model is, as you can see in this graphic here, is dumping tiny iron particles into the ocean, causing them to bloom, die, sink. So think of it as like a kickstart to this already occurring natural process. We're taking this geologically proven natural process and just giving it a kick. And the iron would be dispersed via aircraft and ships, and I'll get to that later. So moving on. So as the incumbent, not me, but addressing the incumbent head of the EPA, surely you are interested in the interests of America. So I've created a list of things that would benefit America specifically. This endeavor will create tons of new jobs for America in a post-pandemic economy. A lot of jobs have been wiped out. Even pre-pandemic, we've seen mass unemployment. So this program would create tons of jobs in research and the production line of this iron and the manning of these ships and aircraft, and so on and so forth. Point being, it'll create a lot of jobs and perhaps a new industry in directly combating climate change. It will ensure the longevity and health and safety of coastal establishments, obviously with sea level rise. It will directly combat sea level rise as the planet cools. Perhaps the most prominent interest for America is that this will allow America to be a new world leader in a new industry using new American-led technology, and it'll allow us to be a world leader against climate change, which will do wonderful things for our reputation. It'll create new industries in our country. And it'll allow us to be a new form of world leader, not just an economic or a militaristic world leader, but an environmental world leader. And then the seeding of the oceans with iron will allow us to it'll also kickstart coastal marine ecosystems. As those phytoplankton eat the iron, larger fish come and eat that, and larger fish come and eat that, and eventually fish populations will begin to bounce back as they have suffered greatly from overfishing. Fish prices have increased in the US. This, as a positive side effect of this, America will have more access to fish and other marine resources. So, Mr. Wheeler, I'm asking you to secure immediate funding for iron seeding in international waters of the Southern Ocean. We are simply running out of time, and action is immediately required. This is a big proposal, I know. This is a big undertaking, but we're already past the due date for our Earth's climate. We just are. We can use any seafaring vessel. We just have to load it up with iron, sprinkle it overboard in key areas in the Southern Ocean, and just rinse and repeat over and over again. We can use any source of iron. We have large landfills full of scrap iron. We can use recycled iron. We can use iron mined out of the earth. Perhaps, probably the most cost-effective means of securing this iron would be from recycling, of course. But the iron is there. It's readily available. It's super cheap. It doesn't need to be high-quality steel. It doesn't need to be anything at all. It just needs to be ground up and ready for shipment into the oceans. A huge benefit in this undertaking. It doesn't require new special materials. It doesn't require any new ships. It just needs ships and iron or aircraft and people to do it. And luckily, there are many unemployed Americans currently looking for new jobs, particularly in the climate sciences. Many young people have gotten their degrees in this, and are looking for jobs. And this is perhaps the most beneficial thing for young people to do to combat climate change. And of course, this all wouldn't happen on a large scale all at once. It would start on a small scale, and then there would need to be, long-term goals put in place for a scaling up of this whole thing. Going out 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, however long it takes for our planet to cool again. And most experts are predicting if widespread iron fertilization occurred today, we would begin to see benefits in about 20 years in the Earth's global temperatures cooling. So, Mr. Wheeler, I ask of you, please consider my proposal for this. And thank you for your time.